Welcome. Let your shoulders soften. Let the tension behind your eyes begin to fade. And imagine yourself sinking gently into a world of wonder, danger, and old stone walls. This is cozy fiction for sleep, where we drift through the magical and mythical, not with fanfare or drama, but with calm curiosity. Tonight, we invite you into the wizarding world of Harry Potter, not as a hero, not as the chosen one, but as someone ordinary, a student perhaps, a bystander, a background character caught in the tide of events far bigger than you. Because while the films sparkle with charm and the books tug at our nostalgia, the reality of life at Hogwarts, or anywhere in the wizarding world, is not quite as cozy as it might first appear. This is not the story of spells and spectacle. This is the quieter truth, the hidden fatigue, the cold stone corridors, the feeling of always being just a little unsafe. So lie back, let your breathing deepen, and allow your mind to wander gently and without effort into the first part of our journey. Imagine you receive a letter. It's thicker than most, stiff parchment, a wax seal. It feels important. And when you open it, confusion, disbelief. Magic? School? Soon you're ushered into a world hidden in plain sight, one where train stations have secret platforms and your pet owl is suddenly your most reliable form of communication. It sounds delightful, but then you arrive at Hogwarts. The train is long, the robes are heavy, the castle looms like a dark mountain. Beautiful, yes, but intimidating. The air smells of damp stone and wood smoke. The great hall is overwhelming. Talking portraits, moving staircases, whispering ghosts. All of it presses against you gently but relentlessly. The common rooms are cozy in the way medieval inns might be. Flickering firelight, thick rugs and drafty walls. There's no heating system to speak of, only magic and blankets. Your fingers are always just a little cold. Your classes are fascinating, but not always gentle. In potions, you spend hours breathing in fumes that sting your nose and burn your eyes. Professor Snape never raises his voice, but his presence alone makes your heart pound. His sarcasm cuts more sharply than most hexes. One mistake, and your cauldron may explode, or worse, melt your desk. Herbology? That seems safe, until the plants start screaming, or wriggling, or trying to bite your gloves. You leave every lesson with dirt under your nails and welts on your arms. Defense against the dark arts varies by the year, and by the curse on the position. Sometimes the class is thrilling, sometimes it's terrifying. Some years, you learn from kind professors who guide you gently. Other years, you are told to sit still while dark creatures are brought into the room for demonstration purposes. Exams are grueling, coursework is constant, and unlike a normal school, Hogwarts adds layers of magical complexity, spells to memorize, incantations to perfect, and a wand that doesn't always cooperate. And then there's the danger. The first year, there's a troll in the dungeon. The second, students are being petrified. By your fourth year, there's a deadly tournament in the middle of the school year. Students watching other students flirt with death as part of tradition. And still, your homework is due by Friday. There's no therapy, no health class, no one to talk to if you feel afraid. Unless you count Madame Pomfrey, whose solutions tend to involve peppermint potions and bed rest. Even the holidays offer little reprieve. Most students can't go home, either due to cost, danger, or personal reasons. The castle grows cold, quieter, the ghosts seem louder. The joy of snow fades quickly when you realize the halls are colder inside than the world is outside. Friendships are your saving grace. But those too are strained by the environment. Houses compete ruthlessly. Gossip spreads through enchanted hallways. Students disappear or get hurt or worse. And yet the school year trudges on. You learn not to ask too many questions. You learn that magic doesn't make life easier, just stranger. You'll be tired, you'll be cold, You'll be watched by paintings, professors, poltergeists, and perhaps, over time, you'll forget what normal ever felt like. But you'll also adapt. Humans always do. You'll find comfort in the rhythm of the bells, the crackle of fireplaces, the late-night conversations in hushed tones while the castle sleeps around you. Still, if you think attending Hogwarts would be a dream, think again. It is magical. It is beautiful. But it is also relentless. And you would be exhausted. Now imagine if you are not just any student, you are near Harry Potter. Maybe you share a dormitory, maybe you pass him in the corridor, maybe, once or twice, you sit next to Hermione in Charms. And though you are not involved in their adventures, you can sense something different, a quiet weight around them. To the world, they're legends, but here at Hogwarts, they are simply 3 students walking under pressure, far heavier than their school bags. Let's begin with Harry. The boy who lived. It sounds grand, almost noble, but imagine being 11 years old and having your life story told, incorrectly, by strangers. Imagine walking into a room and hearing your name whispered. Not for something you did, but something you survived. Every step Harry takes is under watch. The teachers are cautious, the students curious or resentful. He is both idolized and isolated. He has no parents to write to, no childhood photos, no safe space beyond Hagrid's hut. His fame brings expectations, not comfort. And year after year, the danger follows. Not just during battles or duels, but in quiet moments. The fear of being possessed, the pressure of a prophecy, the suspicion that maybe none of this was ever really his choice. He smiles often, but sleep rarely comes easily. And when it does, it brings dreams filled with visions and horrors. Shift your gaze to Hermione. Bright, driven, extraordinary. She makes magic look effortless, but what you don't see is the constant striving. She is a Muggle-born witch. And while many at Hogwarts claim to be accepting, there are whispers, slurs like mudblood, backhanded comments about her being too clever. So she works harder, sleeps less, double-checks everything. Her time turner, meant to help with class schedules, becomes a symbol of silent suffering. She is exhausted, often overwhelmed, but she hides it beneath precision and preparedness. Her brilliance is not just talent, it's armor. Armor against a world that questions whether she belongs. And then there is Ron, the youngest son in a sprawling, loving but poor family. He grows up in hand-me-down robes, chipped wands, and the shadow of older brothers who did it all first, and often better. Next to Harry, the famous hero, next to Hermione, the prodigy, Ron often feels like the spare. He jokes, he argues, he sometimes storms off. But underneath is a boy longing to be seen, not as a sidekick, but as someone worthy in his own right. He battles insecurity more than dark wizards, and when he does fight, when he stands his ground, he does so without glory or headline. Just quiet loyalty. Together they face things no teenager should: petrified friends, tortured classmates, a ministry that turns on them, teachers that vanish, friends that die. They laugh, yes, they find moments of joy in butterbeer, in Quidditch, in silly dances. But the shadow never lifts entirely. They do not have therapy, no safe space to unpack the trauma. Their victories come at a cost, one the books rarely linger on. You see them smile at the end, but not the nightmares, not the strained silences, not the deep, aching tiredness of carrying the fate of a world. So next time you see the trio, remember what it took. Not the spells, but the resilience, the quiet, constant endurance of 3 young people who were not born heroes, but had no choice but to become them. And still, they remained friends. which may be the most magical feat of all. Now imagine it's night. You've wandered just a little too far past the edge of the castle grounds. The moon filters through dense branches and the wind no longer feels like air. It feels like breath. Around you, the trees grow impossibly tall, their roots tangled like sleeping serpents. You are standing at the border of the Forbidden Forest. It is not merely a collection of trees, it is an ancient, watchful presence. Even the professors treat it with a kind of reverence. Hagrid, who fears very little, enters it with caution, and you, a student, are told only one thing: don't go in. But what's truly inside? Let's begin with what's known. There are creatures here, yes, many. Aragog and his kin, the Acromantulas, spin silken traps as thick as ropes. Their eyes glint like drops of tar in the darkness. They do not forget kindness, but they do not spare strangers. There are centaurs, noble, proud, and secretive. They live deeper in the woods, away from the castle's reach. Their minds are older than human time, and they study the stars not for pleasure, but prophecy. They believe in destiny. They reject interference. And they have little patience for wizards, whom they consider arrogant children playing with powers they barely understand. And then there are the things no one talks about. Shadows that move when the air is still. Whispers when no one speaks. Glimmers of light that are not fireflies, and never lead you out, but only deeper. The Forbidden Forest is older than Hogwarts, older perhaps than even wands. Legends speak of ancient magic rooted in the soil here, wild, ungoverned magic that predates even the founders. Magic that doesn't answer to incantations or wand-waving. It breathes, it waits, it watches. Some say the forest was once part of a far vaster land before the arrival of humans. That deep beneath its floor are forgotten altars, sacred groves, and sleeping beasts that were never tamed, only left undisturbed. The trees seem to know things. If you sit beneath them long enough, you may begin to feel them listening. Not cruel, but not warm either. There are rumors of an invisible boundary. Go past it, and you will not return. Hogwarts students only brush the edge. Detentions with Hagrid, forbidden duels gone wrong, the occasional dare. But the true forest lies beyond what even the bravest students see. There are plants in there that glow when they're angry, vines that move like muscle, pools of water that show you things, memories that aren't yours. Sometimes pleasant, sometimes not, and always the feeling of being watched. Even the wildlife behaves strangely. Birds don't sing the way they do elsewhere. Foxes are too silent. Owls land without a sound. You may see hoofprints in the mud, too large to belong to any horse, and then nothing, as though the creature simply vanished mid-step. But despite its dangers, the Forbidden Forest is not evil. It is wild, elemental, a fragment of the world before order. And perhaps that is why it was left untouched. The founders built Hogwarts nearby, but never within. The forest serves as a boundary, not just physical, but symbolic. Inside the castle, knowledge, discipline, learning. Outside, among the trees, the primal, the unknown, the untamed. Sometimes in dreams you may find yourself there, wandering under branches heavy with dew, feeling the thrum of old power in the roots beneath your feet, the air thick with moss, memory, and moonlight. You will wake before you reach the center, because no one ever does, and that is the truth of the Forbidden Forest. It does not trap you. It invites you, softly, silently. One step too far, and you're no longer lost. You've simply become part of the forest's secret. Let's imagine again. You're still a student at Hogwarts, but not just any student. You're a Muggle-born. Your parents have no magical blood. You grew up with traffic lights and cartoons, school buses and smartphones. Then, a letter arrived, and everything changed. You're here now, surrounded by enchanted ceilings and talking portraits. And while it all seems marvelous on the surface, a quiet truth follows you everywhere. You are not one of them, because in the wizarding world, blood matters, especially to the pure-blood families. Now, imagine what life looks like if you are one of them. Take Draco Malfoy. His family line stretches back centuries, maybe even longer than Hogwarts itself. The Malfoys own land, estates, heirlooms, and an entire identity steeped in magical superiority. They walk into the castle not to discover magic, but to inherit it. For Draco, learning a spell isn't just education, it's a family expectation. His wand is handcrafted by the most renowned maker. His robes are custom-tailored. His textbooks are embossed with gold initials. He doesn't ask questions in class because he already knows the answers. He was taught them at 5 years old, sitting in a velvet chair in a drawing room filled with enchanted instruments. Meanwhile, you, just trying to survive your first charms lesson, can't even make a feather float. There's no crash course for this world. No summer camp that explains how to talk to portraits, or why gobstones smell like moldy socks. Every spell is foreign, every hallway a maze. You spend more time pretending you understand than actually understanding. And the purebloods? They laugh at your pronunciation, they sneer when your wand backfires. Some, like the Blacks, the Lestranges, the Carrows, see you not just as ignorant, but as impure. Because for them, blood isn't biology, it's currency. Within these elite families, marriage isn't just romance, it's politics. Alliances between names like Rosier, Knott, and Flint have been carefully arranged for generations, ensuring that their magical power and social power remain concentrated. Some pureblood children grow up in strict, austere households where tradition is law and affection is rare. Others, like the Weasleys, reject those notions entirely, embracing love and humility over status. But even they benefit from the legacy of magical lineage. Arthur Weasley may be poor, but he doesn't doubt that he belongs in the wizarding world. You, however, constantly wonder if you do. Even Hogwarts itself favors tradition. The house system, the old bloodline histories, the portraits that scowl at your trainers and whisper the word mudblood when they think you were not listening. And then there's the ministry. Half the staff are related to someone. Nepotism is not a rumor, it's policy. Family names open doors, they close others. And no matter how brilliant you are, it can take decades to earn the trust that a pureblood child is granted at birth. There are elite gatherings too, Yule balls, private galas, family vaults in Gringotts filled with generations of wealth, curses stored like heirlooms, magic practiced behind closed doors, ancient, obscure, and sometimes forbidden. You aren't invited. Even the dark arts were once an upper-class hobby, something dabbled in behind velvet curtains by young heirs looking to feel powerful. Tom Riddle, despite his half-blood status, modeled himself on that ideal. He knew the power of legacy, and he mimicked it ruthlessly, because legacy in the wizarding world is everything. It determines where you live, who you marry, which job you're offered, even how much respect your wand commands when you raise it in a duel. Now, this isn't to say that all purebloods are cruel or arrogant. Many are kind. Some, like Sirius Black, walk away from their families in protest, but even then, they are shaped by that world. You are not. You come from a place where logic rules, where the fantastical is fiction, and now you live in a world where ancient names whisper behind closed doors, and a single bloodline can decide your future. You may rise, you may succeed, but you will always feel slightly outside the circle. And that is the quiet magic of the pureblood elite. It's not in their spells, it's in their place in the story. Imagine, if you will, stepping through a flickering green flame into the Ministry of Magic, an institution that sprawls deep beneath London's streets, humming with arcane energy and bureaucratic tension. You're not a famous aura or a high-ranking official. You're just a regular employee. Maybe a magical maintenance worker, an obliviator, or a low-level clerk in the Department of Magical Transportation. Your day begins early. The ministry is a maze, both literally and politically. The elevators rattle and groan as they descend into the depths, passing golden doors and enchanted hallways. Once you're in, the hierarchy becomes obvious. Pure-blood names command respect and department heads move with quiet authority. You're expected to keep your head down, especially if you're Muggle-born or half-blood. Paperwork is never just paperwork. Each file buzzes with magical encryption. Each report demands careful calibration of truth and political tone. And then there's the surveillance. The enchanted quills that note every whispered conversation. The portraits that never sleep. In times of peace, it's stifling. In times of war, like during Voldemort's rise, it becomes a place of fear, interrogations and silent disappearances. Occasionally, you're summoned to a courtroom. The air is cold there, heavy with judgment, and the whisper of Dementors past. One wrong move, one politically incorrect spell, and you could be standing before a panel instead of behind your desk. And all the while, the ministry's grand golden fountain trickles softly behind you, a monument to unity that never truly existed. Imagine stepping onto the pitch, your hands gripping a well-worn broomstick, your heart pounding in your chest, not from excitement, but from sheer, unfiltered dread. The sky above you is grey with clouds, the wind biting and sharp. You can hear the thrum of the crowd in the stands, their cheers already growing louder, more fevered, more expectant. You're about to play Quidditch, not watch it, not enjoy it from the safety of a stadium seat. You're on the team. A player. A target. From the outside, Quidditch may look like whimsical fun, flying brooms, golden snitches, cheering students. But the truth is, it is brutally dangerous. It's a full-contact aerial combat sport disguised as entertainment, and you, as a new student or amateur athlete, are entirely unprepared for what's to come. You mount your broom, which vibrates slightly, with anticipation. A whistle pierces the air, and suddenly you're 50 feet off the ground, soaring, dodging, swerving. The sensation is breathtaking at first, until you notice just how little stands between you and a lethal fall. The bludgers come next, two heavy, enchanted iron balls bewitched to fly at top speed with one singular purpose, to knock you off your broom. No joke, no padding, no enchantment to soften your fall. If you're lucky, your team has a competent beater with quick reflexes and a thick bat. But if not, you may find yourself falling from the sky, limbs flailing, bones ready to snap before you hit the ground. There are no helmets, no mandatory safety gear, no referee timeouts when someone's unconscious. Even Hogwarts, an institution with a magical hospital wing, has seen players carried off the pitch with broken ribs, concussions, and in some cases, permanent memory loss. One student, as legend has it, disappeared completely during a match and was only found a week later in the Forbidden Forest, convinced he was a squirrel. And that's just the school level. Professional Quidditch is even worse. Stadiums float in mid-air, and national teams train under weather conditions so severe, Muggles would declare them natural disasters. Players vanish in blizzards. They are struck by lightning. A Welsh team famously played an entire match during a freak sandstorm, and 3 players needed to have their eyes regrown afterward. Then there's the snitch. That tiny flitting ball seems harmless, but catching it isn't just about speed. It's about reckless, daredevil flying. It's about pushing your broom to limits that burn your fingers and frost your cheeks. It is about veering into the path of a bludger while dodging another player as boot to the face. Harry Potter made it look easy, but then again, he was the boy who lived. You, unfortunately, are not. And the pressure, it's immense. You're not just playing for house points. You're playing to prove yourself, to survive humiliation, to avoid injury, and to not let your teammates, or yourself, plummet to the earth in a broomstick-shaped blur of panic. So yes, Quidditch might be magical, but if you played, odds are you wouldn't survive a single match. Or at the very least, you'd spend most of your first season in the hospital wing, if you were lucky enough to make it there at all. Imagine the familiar glow of Diagon Alley at dusk, usually warm, inviting, alive with chatter. Now picture the lamps dimmed, the shutters drawn, posters of a snake-skulled symbol plastered over shop fronts, and a hush so heavy you can taste it. This is Britain in the autumn of 1997, the first year after Albus Dumbledore's death. Voldemort has seized the Ministry, Hogwarts, and quietly, efficiently, the very rhythm of daily wizarding life. You are here, living through what history will call the Second Wizarding War, though to you it is simply life, day after uneasy day, a morning of papers and fear. You wake before dawn because sleep is shallow and haunted. An official owl taps the window, drops a parchment bearing the new ministry seal, twisted, black, and severe. Inside is a notice of updated security measures and a gentle reminder that failure to comply may lead to questioning. Downstairs, the wireless crackles. The familiar WWN presenters have been replaced by monotone voices that repeat slogans. Magic is might. Submit your blood status documentation promptly. You turn the dial lower, hoping the neighbors don't hear the skip in your breathing. Breakfast is plain, stale toast, weak tea. Imports are scarce, Gringotts withdrawals monitored. Every loaf costs a little more galleons, every knock at the door feels louder than it should. Midday in a city that pretends. By noon, you must report to work. If your surname is well known, you glide through the ministry atrium unchecked. If it is not, if you are half-blood, muggle-born or uncertain, you feel eyes on your back. The golden fountain of magical brethren is gone, replaced by a towering statue of robed wizards crushing muggles beneath stone. Water drips from the mouths of carved serpents, echoing through the hall like a slow clock. Desks are rearranged into neat rows so patrols can see everything. Decades-old portraits whisper codes to black-cloaked security. You sign in with your wand, though everyone knows wands can lie. Rumours swirl of a new department deep underground, the Muggle-born Registration Commission. People vanish into its doors and emerge pale, silent, changed. Some never emerge at all. Afternoon shadows, snatches, and silence. You leave early, slipping through back alleys where enchanted posters flare at movement. Undesirable, number 1, Harry Potter's face. His eyes once looked brave, now they look tired, flickering as if he too knows the danger of being seen. The snatchers roam these streets, mercenaries with twisted grins paid in gold and freedom to hunt anyone whose bloodline is in question. Their boots crunch on cobblestones, their curses crack like whips. You keep your hood low, wand hidden, footsteps soft. Evenings used to mean the leaky cauldron's warm fire and friends clinking butterbeer. Now benches sit empty. One wrong word at a pub invites suspicion. Laughter has become a private luxury, shared in whispers behind closed curtains, quickly swallowed when windows rattle. Nightfall in the countryside. When you finally slip home, the countryside feels no safer. Muggle towns flicker with power cuts. You hear its sabotage, but cannot confirm. In farm fields, frightened owls wing overhead, clutching secret letters. Somewhere beyond the hills, 3 teenagers camp beneath an enchantment charm that muffles every sound. You do not know their names, but you've heard of Potterwatch, a pirate broadcast hidden among static. On nights when the sky is clear and courage sparks, you twist the dial, waiting for unfamiliar code words: river, royal, rapier, a whisper of hope. But hope is fragile. You keep your wand under the pillow, trace protective sigils in the air, and pray no green light flashes beyond your curtains. The weight of existing. Every day repeats with small variations: long queues, whispered passwords, false smiles, borrowed courage. Outwardly, you memorize ministry decrees and nod dutifully. Inwardly, you count safe houses, barter loyalty, and wonder if tomorrow's sunrise will see you free or fettered. Ordinary errands have become extraordinary acts of will: buying potion ingredients, visiting an aging relative, sending a birthday card. Any motion might draw scrutiny. Any kindness may be treason if given to the wrong person. And so you live in half silence, half light, half truth. Waiting. Waiting for news, good or bad, that will break the stasis. Waiting for the war to tilt one way or the other. Waiting for your own courage to outweigh your fear, or your fear to choke your courage entirely. Waiting, above all, for morning, when the robed owl will tap again and the cycle will begin anew. Because in Voldemort's Britain, survival isn't about heroics, it's about enduring the endless grey. And you, exhausted, heartsore, barely daring to breathe, might survive one day, perhaps two, but not a winter, not a year, not without deep scars etched where no spell can reach. The final stand, where you would fall in the Battle of Hogwarts. Imagine waking to a strange, muffled quiet. The kind of silence that feels too heavy, too complete, unnatural. The birdsong has stopped. The wind does not blow. Somewhere, far off in the hills, a long, rolling sound like thunder or a great beast groaning disturbs the morning fog. You live in Hogsmeade, perhaps, or farther off in Ottery St. Catchpole, or even in the heart of wizarding London. Wherever you are, today will not be like any other, because this is the day the war ends, but not before it reaches you. A war comes to school. It begins, as it so often does in this world, with rumours that Harry Potter has returned, that he's been seen at Hogwarts, that the final confrontation is coming, that Voldemort is on his way, and then the owls stop flying, the flu network slows, shops close. You feel it before you know it. Something old and terrible is moving, something final. Back at Hogwarts, the castle breathes, shudders, prepares. The students who remain are no longer children. They are soldiers, rebels, frightened friends holding hands in the halls where they once played. Professors raise shields, statues come to life. The air is thick with anticipation and ash. If you were there, just a regular young witch or wizard, not in the order, not chosen by fate, you'd be given a choice. Stay and fight, or flee. And while flight sounds safe, few paths are. Apparition can fail. Portkeys collapse under enchantment. The castle has been sealed, its grounds bound by ancient wards. If you remain, you are in the last stronghold of the free magical world. And it is about to be breached. The siege begins. You'd hear it before you see it. A hum, rising to a roar. From the Forbidden Forest comes Voldemort's army, Death Eaters in black, giants pounding the ground with clubs, werewolves slinking along the tree line, and behind them, silent, dreadful, unwavering, the Dark Lord himself. He does not shout, he does not wave his wand, he simply waits as the Death Eaters begin their assault. The protective dome around Hogwarts flickers, then explodes outward in shards of light. The war is no longer coming, it is here. Inside the walls, chaos. You might take shelter in a corridor with others, wands at the ready, palms sweaty. Not all spells come naturally in this moment. Not all minds stay steady. Some duel with skill. Others close their eyes and hope. And then, a crash. A wall gone, rubble flying, a scream, a blinding flash. You run. No heroes here. While Harry, Ron, and Hermione hunt Horcruxes in the bowels of the school, and brave defenders like Professor McGonagall and Kingsley Shacklebolt dual-season Death Eaters in the Great Hall, you are somewhere else, alone, maybe, or huddled with friends, unsure if you will make it another minute. You hear names shouted, Bellatrix, Fenrir, Dolohov, but you don't see them. All you see is fire licking up the sides of the staircase, blood smeared on a suit of armor, and the stillness of someone who was alive just moments ago. You might fight, you might fall, many do. Remus Lupin and Nymphadora Tonks, Fred Weasley, Colin Creevey, a child no older than 16, dragging his broken wand across the ground. In this storm there are no invulnerable shields. You do not have plot armor. You are not the chosen one. If you fall hard and fast. Maybe it's a curse you never saw. Maybe a collapse of the ceiling. Or maybe you survive, just barely, and spend the rest of your life dreaming of the castle burning. At some point the duels cease, the explosions stop. There is only his voice, unamplified, yet everywhere. A whisper made vast. Voldemort offers mercy. He says there is no need for more death, that Harry must come to him, alone, or all will die. This is when the fear deepens. Because even if you are brave, even if you have fought, even if you are ready to die,
you realize he means it. He will level the castle, kill every last soul within, and there is nothing you can do to stop him. But Harry goes, quietly, bravely, into the forest. And time holds its breath. The battle turns. No one sees what happens in that clearing, not until later, when the truth is whispered, that Harry died and came back.
That he did not kill Voldemort, not with raw power, but by letting the Dark Lord's own arrogance destroy him. When the final duel comes, it is not glorious. It is desperate. Spells fly. Bellatrix dies. Molly Weasley screams in fury. Neville draws the sword of Gryffindor from a flaming hat and severs the last Horcrux. And Voldemort finally collapses into dust, not in a flash, not in triumph, but like something old and broken coming apart. And then, silence. When the dust settles in the Great Hall, they lay out the bodies. A line of the fallen, teachers, students, order members, friends, a twin who never got to finish a joke, a young boy with a camera, a mother and father who will never meet their child again. You stand among the living, bloodied, broken, dazed. The castle smoulders. Dawn creeps over the hills, hesitant, pale. And you wonder if this was victory. Because even if you survive, the cost has emptied something in you. You'll never walk through that castle again without hearing screams in the walls, never sip pumpkin juice without tasting ash, never celebrate without remembering who is missing. Why you wouldn't last? The truth is simple. This war was not fought by legends alone. It was fought by people like you. Ordinary witches and wizards with no prophecy, no spotlight, no time to train. If you'd been there, at Hogwarts, in the alleyways, in the field hospitals, you might have picked up a wand, you might have stood your ground, but lasting the night, surviving the fire, that would have been something else entirely. You may not have died for Harry Potter, but you may well have died beside him. And in that final hour, beneath that broken sky, you would not have been alone. You would have been one among hundreds, tired, frightened, fiercely human, standing on the edge of something terrible and beautiful. After the ashes, a quiet life in a haunted world. So you survived. You stood on broken stone beneath a bruised dawn, your wand trembling in your hand, the screams fading to silence. Around you, the remains of Hogwarts, once a home, then a battlefield, stood half-shattered, part grave, part fortress. The war had ended. Voldemort was gone. But survival, you find, is not the same as peace. The great battles are over. The headlines have been printed. Harry Potter is alive. The Chosen One walks again. The Ministry is reforming. The auras are mending the cracks. People are burying their dead. Fireworks are being lit somewhere. But you're still here. Just another student with a tattered uniform and an incomplete education. Imagine returning to school not for classes, but for closure. The professors, those who remain, try to resume something like a curriculum. McGonagall is headmistress now, her voice still iron, but her eyes softer. She calls for healing. Structure. She says, "We must go on," but the castle moans at night. Entire wings are sealed off for repairs. The astronomy tower has collapsed. The room of requirement is gone. Your transfiguration class now takes place in what was once the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. Fitting, you think. You sit beside classmates you once barely noticed, now bound to you by fire and fear. You pass empty seats. You raise your hand with less confidence than before. And you wonder, what is the point of exams after you've faced death? What is the meaning of grades when you've watched friends fall? Still you try, because trying is what's left. The world after Voldemort is not the one you dreamed of. Yes, the dark mark is gone. The whispers are quieter. The Ministry is purging itself, rebuilding from the inside out. But scars linger. A slow reckoning begins. Trials are held. Names once spoken with fear are read aloud in courtrooms, some to applause, some to silence. You hear that Dolores Umbridge was finally dragged into a cell, that former Death Eaters plead imperious, that informants walk free. You see new posters in Diagon Alley calling for unity and reconciliation. A memorial is erected where the leaky cauldron once stood, a wall of names, always a little damp with tears. You visit once, read each one slowly. You find Colin Creevy's name. You whisper, "Thank you," under your breath. But there is something strange in the streets now, an emptiness, as though the world is pretending to celebrate while everyone silently counts who they've lost. Sleep becomes elusive. Some nights you wake to phantom footsteps echoing down the dormitory halls. Other nights you smell smoke when there is none. You dream of the castle crumbling, of shadows with wands. You cast Protego in your sleep. And yet life goes on. You find laughter again, awkward at first, like your lungs forgot how to do it. Someone pulls a prank. Someone kisses you behind a tapestry. Someone says, "Remember when we thought newts were scary?" You return to Hogsmeade. Honeydukes reopens. Zonko's rebuilds. Madame Rosmerta serves butterbeer, and for a while the warmth in your hands is enough. Careers, choices, and the quiet cost. Graduation comes in a subdued ceremony. No fireworks, no grand feast. Just a procession of tired students in patchwork robes, walking slowly past the head table where empty chairs outnumber full ones. Now what? You're just 17, 18 maybe. You've fought in a war, but you've never held a job. You don't know where you belong in this world that expects you to rebuild it. Some join the Ministry to help purge the corruption from within. Others enlist in the Aura office, hoping to prevent another war. A few retreat to remote corners, growing magical plants or breeding hippogriffs, seeking solace in silence. You're not sure. Maybe you work at Flourish and Blots, stacking books and quietly listening to tales from tourists who don't know what you'll have seen. Maybe you write long letters to the dead or articles about forgotten heroes. Maybe you wander because standing still hurts too much, and perhaps someday you find purpose. But the price of war is that it steals your certainty. Years pass, slowly. Hogwarts repairs itself, brick by brick. The magical ceiling in the Great Hall is patched. The library restocks its shelves. First years arrive, wide-eyed and laughing. You visit one day and find yourself crying over a staircase, one that nearly killed you once, now innocently creaking under school children's feet. You go to reunions, you raise a glass for the ones who didn't make it. You share stories, some real, some softened for the telling. You find that laughter comes more easily now. That time has softened the edges of your memories, though it hasn't erased them. And in time, the world truly begins again. You work. You pay bills. You go home to a flat in a small, magical neighborhood where nothing much happened. And this is your quiet victory. You survived. You lived. You get to make tea without worrying about Death Eaters. You get to grow older. You get to forget small things and remember them again with a smile. No one writes stories about you. You aren't in the portraits at Hogwarts, but you were there. You made it through, and on clear nights when the wind shifts just right, you can almost hear the castle whisper, "Thank you." Time has passed, not in a loud, trumpet-blaring way, but softly, quietly, like snowfall on familiar ground. You are no longer 17, no longer ducking curses or memorizing potion ingredients. You're not even really sure when it happened, when youth faded into something heavier, steadier, when you stopped being someone who might still change the world, and instead became someone just trying to keep it steady. You've grown up. You have a small home now, tucked in a quiet Muggle town where the post arrives by hand and no one knows the word Azkaban. The kettle hums on Sunday mornings. Your spouse hums along, off-key, and upstairs there are small footsteps, a sleepy voice asking for breakfast, and tiny fingers tugging at your sleeve. Your children do not know that you are a wizard. One day, on a whim, or perhaps something deeper, you take them into London. You tell them it's to buy new books, a treat for their growing curiosity, but really you're pulled by something else. By a date you haven't marked in years, but never really forgot. September the 1st. You arrive at King DS Cross a little before 11. You walk past the rows of bustling platforms and your feet move without thinking, toward the barrier between 9 and 10. You don't go through, you just watch. And then you see him. Harry Potter! Still messy-haired, still somehow awkward in a way that no fame ever rubbed off. He stands with two children. One has red in their cheeks and mischief in their eyes. The other is quieter, clinging to his robes. His wife stands beside him, warm, composed, familiar. They're talking to a third child, who is nervously fiddling with the handle of his trolley. The scar on Harry's forehead is barely visible now. Time has softened him, but in his eyes you see something you recognize: worry, hope, a deep love that trembles because it remembers how easily love can be lost. You step back into the crowd. You don't say hello. Would you send them too? The question lingers for days afterward. Would you send your child to Hogwarts? You think of the friends you lost, the wounds you carry, the dark corridors, the spells you cast when your hands were shaking, the war, the trauma, the weight of knowing that school for you was not just about exams, but about survival. Would you want your child to walk through that same gate? It was never just one bad year, never just a single cursed artifact or an unlucky attack. It was 7 years of ghosts, 7 years of whispers in the halls, of students vanishing, of fear blooming quietly beside joy. And sure, perhaps it's safer now, perhaps the wards have been rebuilt, the curses cleared, the staff better trained. But you've learned that safety in the wizarding world is always conditional, always temporary. You begin to wonder, is there only one school? Surely there must be more. Other places, other methods. You recall hearing about Durmstrang, Beauxbaton. Schools hidden in mountains, drifting on clouds, buried beneath the sea. But how different are they, really? Do they truly protect their students? Or just hide danger behind elegance? So you make a quiet decision. Not out of fear, exactly, not from bitterness, but from something deeper, something parental. A desire to shield your children from the things you couldn't escape. You don't tell them about your wand still resting in a box in the attic. You don't speak of the castle with its living paintings and shifting stairs. You don't mention the scars you earned there, both the visible and the invisible. They see you as ordinary. They believe the light turns on with a switch, not a flick. That medicine comes in bottles, not cauldrons. That ghosts exist only in stories and monsters live under beds, not in forests. And you let them. You let them believe the world is small and safe and understandable. That the most magical thing is a birthday candle or a firefly. You tell yourself, if they show magic one day, if it spills out despite you, then you will cross that bridge when it comes. But until then, you are content to be the parent who packs lunches and reads bedtime stories and takes them to the dentist, not the war survivor, not the spellcaster. A new kind of peace. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is still and your hands are idle, you trace the old wand's handle in the dark. And you remember your roommate's laughter echoing through the dorm. The smell of wet grass after a Quidditch match. The feeling of casting your first successful Accio. The long candle-lit nights studying for OWLS. The silence after the final battle, and you don't regret it. But you also don't revisit it. Not often. Not allowed. Your life now is quiet. Your children are safe. And that to you is more magical than anything you ever learned in a castle on a hill. And so you sleep. The fire dims in your living room. The tea goes cold beside you. Outside, the stars blink in a sky that has seen more than most can guess. You sit quietly, breathing slowly, deeply. And you wonder, not with sadness, but with a gentle, wistful fondness, how many others walk among us carrying secrets like yours. Soft echoes of spells once spoken, now resting in silence. The world is full of quiet magic, but the greatest magic of all is peace. So let yourself rest now. The war is over. The story is told. And you are safe. So, after everything, could you survive the world of Harry Potter? Yes. Maybe. If you're clever enough, cautious enough, and maybe just a little lucky, you could survive the troll in the dungeon. You could survive Quidditch, potions class, Snape's sarcasm, and even the Triwizard Tournament if you're determined. You could dodge Death Eaters, resist the Imperious Curse, and even, just maybe, survive a war against the most dangerous dark wizard in recent history. But survival is not the same as peace. Survival has scars. And the truth is, if you do survive, you won't walk away unchanged. You'll carry the things you saw, the friends you lost, the spells you whispered, not in wonder, but in fear. You'll remember how it felt to sleep in a castle while evil slowly crept through its corridors. You'll remember the silence after the final battle, the way victory can feel eerily like grief. You might grow older. You might find love. But part of you will always live in those stone halls, always be 17, always holding your wand a little too tight. And one day, you might choose a quiet life. You might put the wand away, you might keep your memories locked in a drawer too sharp to handle in the daylight. You might look at your children and say, no, you don't need to know magic. The world is magical enough already because you survived something extraordinary, and that is both your triumph and your burden. So if you've ever dreamed of getting that letter from Hogwarts, this video ain't here to crush the dream, but to help you understand what survival really means in a magical world. Magic is beautiful, but it is also dangerous and deeply human. And like all stories, it can hurt. But you made it to the end, you survived the journey. So take a deep breath, let it all go. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You're safe now. If you enjoyed this story, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and commenting what fictional world you'd like us to explore next. Should we dive into Middle-earth, survive a Pokemon journey, or try not to die in Attack on Titan? Let us know. We read every comment. And your idea just might be the next world we explore together.
Until then, have a cozy night.